Welcome to the deep dive. I want you to imagine discovering that the mythological paradise of Eden, or like the ancient Sumerian utopia of Dilmun, wasn't just a physical place you could point to on a map.
Right, yeah.
Imagine if it was actually a phonetic code, like a literal blueprint for human consciousness,
Yeah.
hidden right inside the physical structure of your own throat.
It completely flips how we understand history. I mean, we are so used to thinking of the past as just a series of events that happen in specific locations.
Exactly.
But the research we are looking at today suggests that our earliest ancestors didn't just build cities, they they engineered the sounds of the human breath to mirror the physics of reality itself.
It's wild. So today we're taking the materials you've shared with us, which is this fascinating, highly layered historical dialogue alongside a linguistic codex by a thinker named Karakin, and we're going to try to reverse engineer the origins of civilization.
Yeah, it's a massive, ambitious framework.
It really is. And we're starting this journey in a beautiful, modern mountain resort town in Armenia. But instead of just, looking at the surface, we're going to decompile the software of this region. We're digging 6,000 years deep into the dirt, all the way down to what this theory proposes is the phonetic source code of the human soul.
I kind of think of it like unpacking a matryoshka nesting doll.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Like, you start with this beautiful painted wooden exterior of a resort town, and you open it up to find ancient Sumerian kings, mythological floods, and eventually the architecture of the human soul.
We're basically connecting the physical history of an Armenian town to the earliest Mesopotamian cities, and eventually, and this is the crazy part too, the vowel sounds you make when you feel awe or pain.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we jump into, alchemical linguistics and ancient blueprints, we really need to anchor ourselves in the physical reality of the location we're talking about. So we're starting in a town called Dilijan. Right, so Dilijan is in Armenia's Tavush province, and if you were to walk its streets today, you'd immediately understand why it's locally dubbed Little Switzerland.
Yeah, the pictures are stunning.
It sits in this incredibly lush Ostev River Valley. It's surrounded by these thick, almost primeval forests, and it's super famous for its healing mineral waters. Plus, today it's a UNESCO learning city with these modern hubs like UWC Dilijan and Tuomo.
It's historically been this huge place of retreat, right? Like the research you provided notes that even during the Soviet era, it was a massive cultural sanctuary.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
government built a house of composers there, and artists like Dmitri Shostakovich would retreat into these woods to work. I mean, he actually composed his ninth string quartet surrounded by those trees.
And that concept of a retreat or a healing ground is crucial to keep in mind as we go further back. It's always drawn people who needed to recover, reflect, or create. You see it in the architecture, like the 19th century traditional stone houses on Shurumbayan Street with their carved wooden balconies. And even further back in the 10th to 13th century monasteries hidden in the forests, like Hagartsin or Goshavank, which was founded by the scholar Mikitar Ghosh in 1188.
Even the name of the town kind of hints at this pleasant utopian vibe. The sources give a few folk etymologies for Dilijan. The most famous one is this tragic love story about a shepherd named Dili who was left in the woods, and his mother wandered the forest crying out, Dilijan,
Right.
with Jan being a term of endearment in Armenian, like my dear.
It's a beautiful, melancholic legend, but linguistically, other interpretations suggest Dilijan translates to sweet speech or sweet tongue, reflecting the melodic local dialect.
Ah,
Others trace it to the word dilir, meaning pleasant, or even a 16th century founder simply named Dilijan.
okay, so on the surface, it sounds like the perfect postcard destination. But here's my question. If we peel back the tiled roofs and the medieval monasteries, what was happening in these forests before recorded history?
Well, if we dial the clock back roughly 6,000 years, so around 4000 BC, the quaint town of Dilijan obviously didn't exist yet.
Right, obviously.
But that broader Akstev River Valley was teeming with activity. It was a major hub for early human cultures, specifically transitioning from the Shulaveri Shomu culture into the Kura Araxes culture.
Wait, for those of us who aren't archaeologists, what do those cultural names actually mean in terms of human development?
That's a great question. We are talking about the period transitioning out of the Stone Age. So artifacts found in nearby caves like Hof K1 show Paleolithic or Old Stone Age activity.
Okay.
But as we move into the Getahabit 2 cave complex just north of Dilijan, we hit layers from the early Chalcolithic period dating way back to between 52289 and 4995 BC.
Wow.
And Chalcolithic simply means the Copper Age. These were people who were figuring out how to melt and manipulate metal for the first time.
And the research notes they weren't just like wandering through, they were practicing early agriculture, growing wheat, lentils, and domesticating cattle.
Yes. And crucially, they were mining. Dilijan was a significant transit point for the obsidian trade.
Which is volcanic glass, right?
Exactly. Obsidian was essentially the steel of the ancient world because it holds a razor-sharp edge. So they were trading obsidian and experimenting with early copper metallurgy.
I gotta push back slightly here, though. If these communities were essentially just mobile pastoralists living in caves, trading volcanic glass, and barely figuring out copper, how did they spark this massive Kuraxes urbanization that the texts mention?
It's a fair point.
Making a copper tool in a cave feels like a really long way from building a centralized society.
It seems like a massive leap, yeah. But it's entirely about mastering the specific resources at hand. The Kuraxes culture is credited with the first widespread urbanization of the Armenian Highlands, precisely because they cracked the physical source code of their environment.
How so?
Well, by mixing local copper with arsenic, they created a durable bronze, and they combined this advanced metallurgy with robust agriculture and, very importantly, viticulture.
The cultivation of grapes.
Exactly. When you have durable tools, stable food, and trade goods, you have the exact toolkit required to build complex, permanent societies.
Okay, so they developed this foundational toolkit.
Yeah.
But where does that lead? Because the theory we're exploring asks a really provocative question. If these highland cultures mastered the physical building blocks of civilization, did they export that knowledge down south? Like, did they give it to the Sumerians?
This is where we shift from mainstream archaeology into the descent theories outlined in Karakin's Codex.
Right, getting into the real deep dive stuff.
Standard historical models usually place the mythological Sumerian paradise, a place known as Dilmun, down in the Persian Gulf. Ancient texts describe Dilmun as a pristine, radiant utopia where predators don't hunt, people don't experience pain, and there's no sickness.
A place of perfect healing, which sounds awfully familiar.
Exactly. The Codex points to the descent hypothesis. This framework argues that the Sumerians actually migrated south from the Armenian Highlands, specifically from a highland region, anciently referred to as Arada, around 7,000 to 6,000 BC. And when they moved down into the Mesopotamian valley to build the first great cities, they brought their advanced highland bronze casting and agricultural techniques with them.
It's sort of like discovering that the mythological Silicon Valley of the ancient world wasn't in the desert of Mesopotamia, but was actually nestled up in the Armenian mountains.
Yeah.
And that when migrating people scaled up and moved south, they brought their company name Dilmun and their foundational myths with them to their new headquarters.
And they brought the phonetic concepts, too. The Codex draws a deliberate linguistic line between the healing paradise of Dilijan and the Sumerian paradise of Dilmun.
Right.
If we break it down using this framework, Yan, as in Dilijan, represents the soul or the essence of a lineage. Meanwhile, Mn, as in Dilmun, represents the mind, the container, or the measured all.
So if we follow the logic of this codex, they didn't just carry a memory of a lush, healing forest. They brought a language that was, like, designed to physically manifest that reality. The theory goes that the language itself is an alchemical code.
Yes, and this is the absolute core of Karakin's theory. The Codex breaks down these ancient phonetics mathematically and spiritually. Let's look at the foundational sound DA.
Okay.
In this linguistic framework, DA represents the platform, and mathematically, it aligns with the number 10.
Hold on, let me stop you there. Why does the sound DA equal a platform, and why does that mean 10?
Think of 10 not just as a number, but mathematically as a return to unity, what ancient philosophers called the monad.
Right.
When you count from 1 to 9, you are dealing with individual turbulent digits. But when you hit 10, you create a new unified container, a flat, stable ground from which the next cycle can launch. That is the platform, the DA.
Okay, so DA is the stable launch pad. Then the codex introduces the sound TS. What is TS?
TS is defined as the spirit at peak focus. Think about the physical act of making that sound. Your teeth are together, the breath is sharp, electric, and forceful.
Like a hiss.
Exactly. It's the hiss of a snake or the sharp breath of a galloping horse. It is concentrated kinetic energy.
So what happens when that sharp kinetic spirit, the TS, strikes the solid platform of the DA?
The sharp energy is anchored. TS plus DA becomes DS, manifestation. The spirit lands on the physical plane and takes form.
If we buy into this theory, the architectural logic of that is fascinating. The Codex demonstrates this using ancient Armenian words, right? Like when you take that anchored manifestation DS and you add AR, you get something totally new.
Right, and we should define AR. In this system, AR is the first giver, the primary radiation or the fundamental energy of the sun. You see this root in words like Arev, meaning sun, or Ardsiv, meaning eagle, the bird that flies closest to the light.
Got it. So you combine DS, the anchored spirit, with AR, the sun's energy, and you get the word DSR, which means tree.
Exactly.
It is literally the spirit standing upright on the platform, reaching for the solar radiation. And if you take DS and apply it to blooming, you get DH, the word for flower. It's the spirit manifesting and opening up on the physical plane.
It suggests that whoever coined these words wasn't just arbitrarily pointing at a tree and making up a sound. They were describing the physics of how a tree exists.
But I want to challenge one of the connections the Codex makes here.
Sure.
The text links this DA platform concept to the name Demeter, claiming she is the mother of the platform. But Demeter is famously a Greek goddess. How does a classical Greek deity fit into an Armenian Sumerian linguistic source code?
It's a very fair critique, and it requires looking at the roots of language before national borders existed. The name Demeter, which actually predates classical Greek mythology, aligns perfectly with a much broader pre-Indo-European concept.
Oh, interesting.
Historically, the goddess Demeter was deeply associated with the threshing floor.
The threshing floor, meaning the physical circular stone platform where farmers would beat the harvested wheat to separate the grain from the chaff.
Precisely. The threshing floor was the literal and metaphorical launchpad of human civilization. It is the DA. It's the flat container where the raw chaos of nature is processed into life-sustaining food. She is the mother or the measure, the meter of that platform, the DA. The threshing floor mathematically represents that monad we talked about, the container of the harvest cycle. So, in this view, the Greeks didn't invent the concept. They inherited an expression of that same ancient Highland source code.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But if this DA platform was the launch pad for ancient agriculture, how does a concept like that survive something that wipes out agriculture entirely? The research you shared connects this linguistic DA platform directly to the ultimate survival story, the mythological flood.
Yes.
And specifically to the Sumerian version of Noah, a figure named Utnapishtim.
Standard translations usually say Utnapishtim means he who found life. But when you decode his name using this phonetic alchemy, you get a completely different, much more mechanical description of his purpose.
Okay, can you walk us through the breakdown? Because looking at the text, it seems incredibly intricate.
Let's pull it apart. UT is connected to the number 8, representing the active principle, what the Codex playfully calls the activate. Bisht relates to an ancient root for worship or adoration, and I am means the self.
So putting that together, Utnapishtim isn't just a guy's name. It translates to the adoration of the activate within the self.
Exactly. He represents the ultimate human container. The myth says he transitions from the turbulent, chaotic flood waters, which mathematically represent the number 9, the turbulence before completion, and he lands his art safely on the solid platform of the new world.
He lands on the DA.
He lands on the DA, the 10.
And according to the traditions, that ark lands in the mountains of Ararat, right back in the Armenian Highlands. But the Codex argues that Noah didn't just step off a boat and plant a physical grapevine to make wine. It says he planted the KHAZ.
The KHAZ is essentially the Armenian code of human resonance. Think of it as ancient musical notation, but not for instruments, for the human breath itself. It charts the alchemical liquefaction of sound.
If you are listening right now, you can actually physically feel this transition in your throat. The Codex starts with the letter K. Make a hard K sound. It's a glottal stop. Complete blockage of air. It's hard, like a stone. No vibration whatsoever.
Now, move to the next stage. KH. It's a fricative. You are pushing air through a narrow space. You can feel the friction, the roughness in the back of your throat. In this alchemical system, that roughness represents dry earth.
Right. But then that dry earth gets watered. It ferments. If you soften that rough KH, engage your vocal cords, and let the sound turn liquid, it becomes GH.
Yeah, it's a voiced fricative.
And the research points out that the Armenian word for grape is hak. You literally start with the rough KH of the dry vine, and as the word moves through your mouth, it ends up in the sweet, liquid GH of the juice.
It is the literal phonetic sound of fermentation. And finally, that liquid energy reaches the top of the resonance scale and vibrates purely at Z. When you trace that journey from the rough KH all the way to the vibrating Z, you get KHAZ.
It's wild. This theory suggests Noah wasn't just a ship captain or the world's first farmer. He was a master sound engineer. He was tuning humanity's EQ so they could process their survival.
That's exactly it.
You hear this liquid GH sound in the word for goose, the bird that bridges heaven and earth, and in ancient instruments like the duduk. The duduk is an Armenian woodwind instrument made of apricot wood, and its entire purpose is to bridge that exact phonetic gap.
When you listen to a duduk, it sounds like a human crying. It uses that same phonetic transition from the rough, frictionless breath to the deeply vibrating liquid spirit, which leads us to the most intimate part of this codex.
How does this ancient sound engineering apply to the raw human emotions we all experience today?
Right, because everything we've talked about, monasteries, agriculture, Sumerian floods, it all ultimate funnels down into how we process feeling. The research focuses heavily on the OA sound, or the vowel U. In this framework, the OO sound acts as a vocal tunnel. It is the bridge between the absolute extremes of human experience. Just think about the sound itself. A deep, drawn-out OO is simultaneously the howl of bitter pain and mourning, but it is also the sweet coo of pleasure, comfort, and wonder.
The Codex has this beautiful passage suggesting that Noah learned this phonetic alchemy simply by listening to his family after the flood. Before he ever planted a physical vine, he heard the bitter trauma of their struggle and the sweet relief of their survival, all contained in that one instinctive vowel sound.
It's the sound of processing the friction of life. And once you synthesize that bitter and sweet, it leads to the ultimate vowel expression in this entire theory, the sound of AWE.
AWE. And the theory breaks this down too, right?
Yeah, A represents the alpha, the source, the widest opening of the human breath. W is the wave, the water in continuous motion, and E is the essence, or the edge.
So when you truly experience awe, you are momentarily moving past the MN, the measuring, calculating mind. You stop looking down at your internal logical map and you look up at the unmeasured all.
It's that feeling of looking at the stars or a massive canyon, where the thinker and the thought just dissolve into one unified experience.
Is this why the texts claim that every child is born already conscious of this code?
Yeah.
Like they instinctively know how to cry in bitter pain and coo in sweet joy before they ever learn English or Armenian or any formal language.
Exactly. The Codex views this not as a vocabulary you have to study, but as an inherent biological and spiritual resonance. We are born already speaking the sounds of the waters and the breath. But as the theory beautifully puts it, children have to grow wings. They have to develop that sharp TS spirit. They have to land on the physical DA platform, and they must learn to navigate the friction of life before they can fully participate in the world.
Wow. We have decompiled quite a program today. I mean, we started by looking at a map of Dilijan, Little Switzerland, a modern place known for its healing mineral waters.
Then we stripped away the modern roads to find the 6,000-year-old obsidian traders mastering the physical source code of the Copper Age. We followed the theory that these Highlanders migrated south to Mesopotamia, taking the linguistic blueprint of a healing paradise Dilmun with them.
And we traced that blueprint all the way down into our own vocal cords. From the stable DA platform of the threshing floor, through the alchemical liquid vibrations of the KHAZ, past the bittersweet OO, and arriving at the sheer AWE of pure consciousness.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. Whether you take this codex as literal history or as a profound philosophical metaphor, it's a staggering reminder that language might be far more than just a tool to order a coffee. It might be an echo of the physics of reality itself.
It's an idea that completely shifts how you view every single word you speak.
It really does. And I want to leave you with a thought that isn't explicitly in the research we covered today, but builds directly off it.
Okay.
If our ancient ancestors embedded their entire understanding of physics, spirituality, and reality into the very phonetic sounds of their letters like DA, TS, and AWE, what unintentional invisible source code might we be embedding into our modern digital languages today? Right. When we write code or feed prompts into an AI, what hidden biases, what structural realities are we programming into the next 6,000 years of civilization without even realizing it? Next time you speak or type, think about the ancient architecture echoing in your breath. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.